Your flight has been cancelled or delayed. What should you do? Amid staff shortage, wild weather, and the spreading Omicron variant, flights may be prone to last-minute changes. Here's what you need to know if yours is one of them. Flights can be delayed or canceled because of weather, maintenance issues, or staffing problems. If you find yourself stuck at an airport with a canceled or delayed flight, here's what you should know. First things first, prepare before you go. If possible, try to book directly through the airline rather than through an online travel agency, which may make it more difficult to change your itinerary in case of a cancellation or delay. Your rights under the law are still the same, said Scott Keys, the founder of Scott's Cheap Flights, a service that checks and emails airfare deals to customers. But dealing with an airline, he said, is going to be simpler and generally more efficient. You should also make sure you have all the necessary documentation required for travel, such as a negative COVID-19 test or proof of vaccinations, which many countries require for entry. A lot of people don't have the right information before they get to the airport, and then there's a lot of confusion, said Michael Hotz, the chief executive of Smart Flyer, a New York City-based luxury travel agency. Check in 24 hours in advance of your flight, and if possible, Mr. Hotz recommends traveling with only a carry-on so you can skip the check-in or baggage drop lines, which can often be very long. You should also keep checking your flight status before heading out, in case there are any delays or changes to your flight. It may be helpful to download the application for the airline you are flying with so you can more easily check your flights and any schedule changes. What should I do if my flight is delayed? Under federal law, airlines are obligated to provide a full refund to customers if a flight is significantly delayed and the passenger chooses not to travel. What constitutes a significant delay is determined by the airline, but Mr. Keys said that the 2 hours is usually a good rule of thumb. You should check your airline's website for its contract of a carriage, which outlines the policies for more specific information. If you choose to travel, you should get the line to speak with a gate agent to discuss your options. You will typically be placed on the next flight with available seats. You can also call the airline, but considering the long wait times on a lot of US customer service lines, Mr. Keys recommends trying one of the airline's international numbers, which are listed on their website's contact us page and might have a shorter wait. You want to make sure you know what the cell phone rates are, he said. But if you are calling Canada, it's like 2 cents a minute. It's going to be a 20 minutes call versus a 3-hour wait if you are calling a US hotline. I think it's worth 40 cents. If you book through an online travel agency, such as Expedia or Orbitz, you will need to call it directly to resolve your issue. The airline generally won't want to deal with you, Mr. Keys says. If you choose to keep traveling, you are not entitled to compensation under federal law. But some airlines may offer it if the delay is their fault, such as if it's caused by a machinery or staffing issues. American Airlines, for instance, will arrange an overnight stay for customers whose flight is delayed and does not board before midnight on the scheduled arrival date, said Andrea Cruz, a spokeswoman for American Airlines. JetBlue offers compensation for flights delayed 3 or more hours, from $50 to $200, depending on the length of the delay. If your flight was booked directly through the airline, it will email you within 7 days of the flight scheduled departure to provide instruction for receiving compensation, according to its customer bill of rights. If you book through a third party such as Expedia or Orbitz, you will need to call that company's customer service line to ask for protection compensation. If the delay is caused by an act of God, such as bad weather, and you're stuck somewhere overnight, you are on your own when it comes to meals and lodging. What should I do if my flight is cancelled? If your flight is cancelled by the airline, you will either be accommodated on a later flight, or if you decide not to travel, you are entitled to a full refund under federal law. If the flights had multiple stops, you would be refunded for the unused portion of the flight. Often, airlines will offer travel credits or voucher in lieu of a full refund, usually valid within a year of use. That's why it's so important to know your rights under the law, Mr. Kidd says. If you decide not to take in a trip, try to push for getting a cash refund rather than a voucher. This may sound very obvious, but cash is a lot more valuable than an airline voucher. If you decide to accept a later flight, you should get in line to speak to the gate agent or the customer service desk if directed there. But Mr. Kiss recommends doing your own research beforehand to see what flight works best for you, including looking at partner airlines for your carrier and asking the agent whether there's room on another carrier's flight. When a flight gets cancelled, the agents have tons to deal with, and they are just trying to figure out how to get the situation resolved, he said. They are not necessarily trying to figure out what is the best, simplest, most appropriate flight for your specific situation. While you are in line, call their airline or online travel agency through which you booked your flights in case you can get help before reaching the gate agent. In recent years, travelers have taken to social media to express travel frustrations or reach customer service. But Mr. Kidd said airlines are encourage people to call their customer service lines. Airlines may also offer compensation, but you are not entitled to do it under federal law. In JetBlue's case, if it cancels a flight within 4 hours of its departure and cannot accommodate a travel within an hour of the scheduled departure time, it offers $50 in compensation. If the cancellation happens after the scheduled departure, the number goes up to $100. Delta will put up passengers whose flights are cancelled between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. at one of its contracted hotels for the night. But if no rooms are available, it provides a voucher for up to $100 that can be used toward future travel. If you believe your experience warrants compensation, just ask. Generally, the airline will be more cooperative as far as compensation if the flight is cancelled, Mr. Holt said. And make sure to be kind and courteous, Mr. Kidd said. If you are an online agent, especially with these hour-long holds. Your entire day is spent dealing with irate, frustrated, impatient customers who are frankly not treating you nearly as well as you ought to be treated, he said. If they have somebody who's actually treating them in a human way, I think they're much more likely to actually go out of their way to try to help you. Mr. Keys also noted their airline agents have a fair amount of discretion, so you shouldn't give up if the person you speak with isn't receptive. Rather than trying to lobby or argue with the person, which is almost never going to work, he said, hand up and code again. You are going to get patches through to one of the thousands of other agents, each of which might say yes. How do I redeem a travel credit? If you receive a travel credit for a canceled flight and you book directly through the airline, you will typically be able to redeem it directly through the airline's app or website. After you log into your account, there will be an option to apply a travel credits to your purchase at checkout. Airlines usually send an email with instruction for redeeming a travel credits, but information can also be found on the airline's website. American Airlines, for example, offers detailed instruction on how to redeem the various type of credits it gives passengers. But the type of the tickets you purchase matters. If you originally bought a best economy ticket, which is technically non-refundable, you may have to call the airline directly to rebook. If you book through an online travel agency, the credit will need to be used on its side, Mr. Keith says.